Yeah, I don't know the guy. Weinberg, Andrew Weinberg, Matthew Weinberg.
All right, thank you. All right, welcome to the school committee. I don't even know what the date is, March 14th, 2024. We have a regular session tonight. All those who can and are willing, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're back on track with the love of learning. Best part.
Hey, it is the best part. I'm learning. Okay. So I would like to call senior Evelyn Richardson down here. Tonight we are going to honor two students. One couldn't make it, and that is Brian Shekhel, who is a junior. But a great event happened, and we need to pause and take time to recognize our students and have the school committee congratulate them. But on the weekend of February 3rd, the Swampscott High School Model UN team competed against over 1,800 students from several countries at Boston University's 23rd Model Union Nations Conference. Our delegation of students was 58.
Wow.
58 students was the largest. Our group was the largest at the event. Some students worked to find solutions to a bevy of current real-world issues. In contrast, other students took on roles of prominent historical figures, modern CEOs, and even reporters for media conglomerates during a grueling 12-hour committee schedule. That seems daunting even for an adult. The delegation has been preparing for months by working on their public speaking, writing position papers, and simulating mock committee sessions. This hard work paid off greatly for junior Brian Shekhel and senior Evelyn Richardson, both of whom took home honorable mention awards in their respective committees. This is the first time members of our school's delegation have been honored at this level in roughly a decade.
Wow.
We just wanted to take the opportunity to celebrate Brian and Evelyn's accomplishments more broadly before the committee and our community. Well done. Congratulations.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then get a picture?
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Can we ask questions?
This is so great.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
I'm
Congratulations.
so curious.
I know.
I'm so curious.
So Evelyn, why don't you have a seat in the front row and they can ask you questions first, and then we'll get, no pressure.
Yeah, no
and
pressure.
then we will get a photo. That is amazing.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. I remember doing Model UN in high school. It was such an awesome thing, but I was never at a conference that was anything other than like the towns in my district or whatever in my county. But what did you do to get honorable mention? Like, that's awesome.
So I was representing Ronald Herbert York, and I basically had to try and tackle the sinking of the Lancastria during World War II. So I was in a room with like 25 students, and we basically had to create a bunch of these like drafts to get passed throughout the committee in order to tackle this event, and also like allocate troops, aid, like anything like that to either France or Britain. So that's pretty much what I was doing.
Wow.
So were you representing a country, or were you?
No, my room was full of people representing like different kinds of soldiers, officers, and like nurses and stuff like that.
And so you knew that going in?
Yes, I did. They tell us beforehand and give us lots of research, like sites and stuff like that, so that we can prepare.
Were you part of the team that woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning for the emergency?
No, thankfully I wasn't. That's what I was going to ask. The late night.
Evelyn, is Mr. Mastone the advisor to Model UN?
Yeah.
And is there a co-advisor? I wondered. Is it just Mr. Mastone?
No, it's just him, and there's a few other teachers that will help out during the trip. But beforehand, I was able to talk to like Mr. Restronzi, for example, to help myself prepare.
But it was Mr. Mastone that actually forwarded this information to us. And truly, there's so many activities that go on in this high school that to keep track of them and have somebody say, pause, you need to really celebrate these kids, was amazing. So I'll leave the
I
question.
read it, Mr. Coe had, I think, put it in the high school daily thing or whatever, and I read it, and I just read it like it's, of course, people always get things like this, but to hear that there were so many delegates and then so many different kids there is pretty unbelievable.
But did you also have fun?
I had so much fun, yeah. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Is it something you want to do for a career?
Possibly, yeah.
That's awesome.
What's your plan for going forward?
I would love to be a diplomat, but honestly, I would be okay with being in USAID or something like that, where I can help foreign countries.
What's the next step in schooling for you?
International relations.
Which school?
Hopefully Georgetown, but so far I don't really know yet.
Great.
Soon, right?
This just sounds so great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I love it.
Could I get a picture with Evelyn and the committee?
And the committee?
Yes, let's get it with the committee.
All right. Do you want us to give us so they get
Oh, that would be nice, thank you. And then I can tweet it out.
tweet it out?
Well, it's not, exit out now, is it?
Exit out.
Evelyn, did you just say you applied to 21 schools? I did. Oh, my goodness, right here.
It's so different now.
Oh,
Right?
it's crazy.
Oh, that just makes it great.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And thank you for coming out. And his dad and brother as well.
Awesome. I love that.
Those are the fun
I know.
parts of committee meetings.
Now, let's move on to committee comments. Karen, anything?
Nope, nothing.
John? Other than maybe John announced the band concert tonight, in case anyone's wondering what they should do. Glenn?
I'm all set, thank you.
I got a bunch of stuff.
Oh, good.
First, I have a lot of Metco stuff, actually. So first of all, at the end of March, I went to a luncheon that was hosted by the Metco program, and I think Temi Bailey really spearheaded it. And they set up at the senior center, they set up a panel discussion that really focused on the history of Metco. And it was really a great event. And watching and listening to these kids talk about, some of the really difficult things that they are facing in terms of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get here to school, and how they struggle to do a lot of the things that kids who live here in town what we take for granted, and how far they have to travel to do it. It was a really great event, and it was supported. It's too bad Sam's not here. It was supported by the kids in the Room of Color, who were really great hosts. And brought us all lunch, and it was really a terrific event. I felt very proud. On the heels of that, last night was a student-teacher basketball game, which was a lot of fun, as usual. I know this is a big fundraiser for them, and it was a packed house, and it was really exciting to see that. I hope they raised a lot of money. I was really happy to hear the other night at town meeting, I don't know if Mr. Doulette is back there, but I was really excited to hear about the program that the TV studio is going to be running for the public. I don't know if that is something that how much of that is the high school versus how much of that is through Mr. Doulette and the work that he does for the town, but I just thought it was really exciting, especially for a town as small as Swampscott, to be able to have services like that for free is pretty exciting. And then last but not least, that kind of dovetails on a program that I participated in, I think it was last week or the week before, also with Metco, which was a 2-night program with about a dozen of our colleagues from school committees. It was specifically for school committees. It was about a dozen other people from places like Lexington, and I was with some people from Natick and Belmont. It was led by 2 Harvard professors who now have their own consulting company, really about having difficult conversations as it relates to not METCO per se, but what they're calling METCO 2.0, which I have a position document that I'm going to share. I've asked for an updated piece that I can share with the school committee. I think, Superintendent, you have already more than seen it because we are featured, Swampscott is featured in it heavily at the back. There is a sort of a list of what districts that participate in METCO and what they've done, and Swampscott figures very prominently. I was very proud to see that, that we have a leadership position there. So I think that's also evident by the work that is being done here. Both Glenn and I participated less than the teachers did, but in some training that is being run by, help me out here.
Mike, recall names.
Sorry, my name, this is like where I'm clearly showing my age. But 2 of your teachers, 2 of your educators, Pam, have been leading us in seed training. That has been really...
Is it Emily Borden and Sarah Kelly?
Yes.
Exactly who it was.
And I'm
Pulled
very,
that out of-
I'm embarrassed that I could not retrieve that off the tip of my tongue. It's been really, it was really an honor to participate in that. So over the next couple of weeks, I want to share with the rest of you some of the things that I've gotten, particularly from this METCO training and the METCO 2.0, because I think that it speaks not only to METCO, but the way that METCO is really sort of transitioning themselves into not being a program that is simply a busing program, moving kids out to, taking kids out to the suburbs to educate them, but really ensuring that the communities that they are working with, that METCO 2.0 really becomes a story of anti-racism, not only for the kids who are in the program, but for the kids in the host district as well. And I know that Superintendent, you are on the forefront of that, particularly as it relates to the work with METCO. So it was good for me personally, but it was also made me really proud. So I want everybody else to feel proud about that.
I love that you did that training. I saw it, and I couldn't.
It was really intense.
Couldn't do it. It just looked. I mean, not just the seed stuff, the things, the 2 nights you did with METCO, because I know we all got that invitation, and it sounded great.
It was really intense.
To just piggyback off what you said about the event and on that luncheon, I think one of the things we really heard that speaks to METCO 2.0 is the community. It's the community engagement, and I think a lot of those kids talked about not having a family friend in town, or just not being able to sort of connect with this community because of their schedule and stuff. And there was sort of not an all call, but they're definitely looking for families to help. And I think they were open to having families without kids in the school system help as well. So I think
in some ways the families without kids in the system could be just as, if not more powerful, because that really ties them in with the community.
I agree, and I think that, friendships, like you try to match a kid up with a friend, and, friendships come and go, or something happens, and sometimes that just feels awkward. And I think that there's an opportunity for people in the community to definitely get involved. I mean, it was just heartbreaking to hear what some of them miss, or even, what they miss at home, not just what they miss here.
Yeah,
so
it certainly spoke to me, having a kid off at college in an empty bedroom,
right?
Knowing that I can do more.
Yeah, I know, that's how I sort of walked away feeling the same thing. And there's definitely an effort to try to bridge that gap. So, yeah, that's really, I love that.
It's been a really informative couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so kudos to Temmie Bailey in particular, because between the event of the luncheon and the fundraiser last night, it was fabulous.
And
I see Mr. Kalishman here, who is quite the showboater, very competitive.
I heard he took out a high school teacher.
Oh, just a few.
Oh, no.
I'm not sure about the high school teacher, but maybe a high school kid. It was a
It's
good
funny
moment.
how when you get out there, you just can't be anything but competitive.
It was like 1995 all over again.
I just saying,
Except the bodies weren't feeling
Yeah.
95.
They needed a little bit longer of
Yeah.
a halftime.
Recovery.
Like a lot of aspirin when they got home. A lot of
I know Mr. Knowles had his foam roller out before he was playing, so.
Yeah.
the only other thing I wanted to add was I had the privilege of going to a school council meeting for the townwide elementary school council, and it was impressive. There was so many teachers and so many parents and so many elementary school administrators there. It was really just like it was nice to see, and it was nice to hear. I don't hear a lot of elementary school just chatter, and it was really informative to sit and listen to some concerns. So
Is this the group that works on the school?
this is the group that's sort of working on sort of doing a
The
needs
school improvement
assessment.
plans?
They actually just completed a needs assessment that they sent to the elementary schools. I think in total they probably got about 300 responses from the 3 schools. So that was pretty good. And the number one concern is community, is driving and parking and carpooling, that, or drop off and pick up was the number one concern. And then student and community, creating community with students, and then creating community with parents. So, yeah, they're on their way to making a school improvement plan for the next 3 years for the new school.
And I know middle school and high school are doing the same. They've been on schedule, meeting with their councils and working really hard with their needs assessment and coming up with a school improvement plan. And it feels good to be back on schedule
Yeah.
to some degree with that, so.
Yeah, no, it was just interesting. Anyway, that's all.
So I'll go into my superintendent's report, if that's okay?
Yeah.
It actually, my first item on my agenda is a MEDCO program update, and I believe I shared with the committee that, maybe more informally, but we have appointed Mr. Temmie Bailey and Ms. Krista Lynch as co-interim directors, and I just want to say, and I know it would be echoed by everyone in this room, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, they have done a fantastic job. They are passionate, they are enthusiastic, they have gotten on top of enrollment with MEDCO Inc. They've attended trainings, they got some new information about how we're able to select students, and the process in that we can't go from 54 students and jump right to a larger number. It has to be incremental, and so we will have 5 or 6 seats available to get to that 54, but we've made a commitment to go to 9 students, bringing them in at the elementary level, so that we can slowly build the program over years. They have 6 students committed to Swampscott right now, and they're hoping that the other 3 will commit as well. So having a new elementary school where we're able to bring those kids in younger is just what we've always wanted. So I just want to shout out to them that, I've had meetings with them bi-weekly. They can go anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. They are sponges. They are communicating. They're meeting regularly with the principals. We have a tutor that we hired as part of my report. Salvador Babagallo is an academic tutor now, so kind of taking those responsibilities off of Temmie and Krista and helping out in that capacity. And in addition, we have 18 applicants for our MEDCO director position, and there'll be 3 rounds of interviews. The first round will consist of, the team will be the director of HR, our assistant superintendent of student services, and 3 MEDCO parents. The second round team will include the director of HR, our assistant superintendent of student services, principals, and MEDCO students from the high school. And the final interviews will be conducted by myself, the director of HR, and our assistant superintendent of student services. We are currently looking at, Lisa Colts really is driving this process and has collaborated with the parents that are interested in being on this committee and developing questions for the first round. And also, everyone reviewed the resumes and the applications, including Assistant Superintendent Martha Raymond, and came up with individual lists, and there was some overlap. So we have approximately, if everyone accepts the interview, there will be 10 out of the 18 that will be interviewed.
Oh.
And that will be, we'll keep them, I was saying to Lisa today, that first round, you should be able to tell them 20, 25 minutes. They shouldn't be very long interviews. So that is fantastic. And I think I've talked about everything else under this Medco program update. So any questions about
Would that position report to?
me?
Okay.
In the past, it's also reported to student services because it is a student service, and I chose to dive back in because I felt like I was too far removed from the program and the students. And I have to say, being at the high school, Temmie's really taking advantage of coming down and getting some coaching and asking great questions so that we're preventing any kind of issue. It's been great.
It's very impressive that we have 10 qualified candidates. That makes your life just much easier. And the people who have volunteered for the committee, thank you to them. But 10 people is outstanding.
Yeah.
It is.
You can't, that's a best case. So that's great.
We're excited. In terms of a Swampscott Elementary School update, Ms. Sanborn sent this out to the families. I'll be following up. We decided that she will send an update. I will send an update. Tomorrow I'll be sending interior drone footage from about a month ago. So it's going to look different to the teachers when they start their visits. But on March 1st, Ms. Sanborn and I went to Gardner, Massachusetts to visit the Gardner Elementary School, which was opened in 2022, brand new building. It has approximately 1,000 students. It's a pre-K to 4 building. And the reason I want to shout out to Kate Curtis, who took all the new building projects and kind of narrowed us down to this school that was most comparable to our project so that we could go out and visit it, and in particular watch their drop-off in the morning and meet with their principal and meet with, actually their superintendent spent all that time with us too, and gave us a tour of their school, talked about things they would have done differently. I was thrilled when Earl Martin, the principal, said, I don't know if it's too late, but I'm going to tell you we made a mistake by putting the 3rd and 4th grade cubbies in the hall. And I said, we didn't. They're in the classrooms. And he said, you made the right decision. They had a lot of challenges. It is still not closed out, the project, 2 years later. The weekend before it opened, they were sweeping classrooms and spaces, and they had to open 2 weeks later. They were impressed that we had tile up already. They said they didn't have tile up till whenever. So it was a fantastic visit. Mr. Martin and Ms. Sanborn connected immediately. They were sharing schedules. They were sharing specialist schedules. So I think we've made a connection across the state that is going to be valuable to both of us. And so, when he talked about his drop-off, the drop-off was like a well-oiled machine, and they were both chuckling that that's like the 5th iteration of it. And so they were telling us all the mistakes they made. And I talked about what we did when we opened Stanley at Blaney. When we had parents that wanted to do the dry run in the summer, and they're like, that was brilliant. I'm like, yeah, we might do that again. I think we're going to be doing some dry runs. They have a larger busing population, but they don't have walkers. They could never have walkers to their site because it's just off a main road. The high school's up the street. So they have changed the way buses come in. But it was great. It was just, as I said, I want to thank Kate Curtis for setting that up for us, and it gave Lori and I some, one-on-one time. We are meeting weekly. To talk about things that are happening, and also Lori is working, and the other principals are working on, I've mentioned before, with SMI School and Maine Institute in terms of making sure we are taking into consideration families for this. But one of the recommendations they gave Lori, and then they emailed me, is that she really needs to focus at least 2 days a week just on the new elementary school because so much is happening so fast. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she comes up and works out of my conference room. That gives us a chance to, on the fly, make decisions, talk about things, and Mr. Knowles is running Hadley. She got pulled away today. She might come back up tomorrow. But there is so much and so many decisions, and I said at leadership team meeting yesterday that, you know, Officer Wilson, the walkie-talkies, everybody has a piece to this, and the entire leadership team, Martha, Jean, LaTanya, everybody is just working so hard. But it's tricky because you have a conversation with LaTanya, then I have to go back to Lori, and I'll speak a little bit about that in my report later, and make sure we're all on the same page. So we're doing conference calls on the fly with my standing meeting with this one. Let's see if we can get this one on the line. There's just, you know how many moving parts there are.
It's so amazing to walk into the rooms and see like the charts on the walls and like you walk in Miss Mackie Knowles and she has like the floor plans and where's the, you know, this wire going and that wire going and how's, you know.
And the other thing that just happened last week, I can't even remember, it was important. Assistant Superintendent Martha Raymond was so involved in the design of the special education and the placement of the special education spaces. So when she was able to go on the leadership team tour, it was like whiplash, like, wait, what? You know, what room is what? So LaTanya and Lori and Martha went over and had a much slower pace tour, talked about the rooms, the programs, and made, I think, just one or two changes that don't upset the plans of the building, but are much more functional. So it's a real collaboration, you know, with central office and with the building leadership on what's going to work for these kids. So, you know, there's a lot going on. And the teacher visits start next Thursday. We have 3 Thursday afternoon, we have 3 the following Thursday, we have 3 the following Thursday, and they're going to be revealing the actual names of their class, like the teachers will see their actual classrooms. So a
I don't
lot.
know if it's that hindsight is 20/20, but I feel like this could not have happened 10 years ago.
Nope.
When we first voted
couldn't.
for a new school. Or
We
I
didn't
shouldn't
have
say
the
first,
leaders in
when we-
place.
Yeah, your team is deep enough. that
Absolutely. I mean,
I didn't have a director of facilities.
You didn't.
A wing
or
should be named
technolo-
after
I mean,
Max
Max
Tassel.
should have Max should have a wing.
Technology, I mean, the technology
No,
piece of it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
LaTanya
That
is,
as well.
just everybody. And this couldn't have, if this happened in past in 14, I don't know what I would do, because we are all running as fast as we can, and it still feels like, okay, I made this decision today, but now tomorrow, that impacts this decision. And I think I'll jump to that after this next piece. The other thing that happened, and it was Monday night, and it happened at the same time as town meeting, special town meeting, but the Drawn Family Foundation in December brought forward a donation for a guest speaker, Matthew Bocci, to present on opioid awareness. And it was brought in through Hadley Woodfin, our high school health teacher, and it was just so nice. I actually stopped and went in the auditorium and watched the presentation, and he was fabulous. Not only was he fabulous, our students were fabulous. I do have it linked. If you can open my superintendent's report. So basically, he was 9 years old when his father was in the tower on 9/11. And from there, he really struggled. And he was so authentic and so down to earth with the kids that there were a lot of tears. And what was most impressive, and you'll see, and Suzanne, you'll love this, is the student data, if you could open that. I don't have my glasses, enlarge it. So Hadley, I can see it. Hadley sent out a student survey. I believe I exited, but they all pulled out their laptops in there, and it was, did you enjoy this guest speaker? And I think that's 99.1% said yes. What emotions did the speaker bring up? Check all that apply. Inspiration, sadness, happiness, grief, calmness, enjoyment, and surprise. And you can look at this is linked in your report, you'll see it. Do you think it is important for Matt Bocci to visit again in upcoming years? And that is 97.6%, 5%. So when you want feedback, I'm not surprised by these results watching the students through the presentation. He didn't have a PowerPoint. He just had his picture up there. He was talking. It wasn't flashy. It was a story. And then I know he presented in the evening, but it did conflict with town meeting, and I heard there were only 25 people there, but it was well worth it. And again, we've been talking in central office and also with Mr. Kohut about SEF. I have to follow up where we're at with that. And I really want to say that, shout out and thank the Geron Family Foundation for all that they're doing to support our schools and support mental health. And this was wonderful. I did look up, he has a book, and it's called Sway. I put it in my Amazon cart. I haven't bought it yet because I've now heard his story, but it was, and there is a Matthew Bocci flyer right here. So a shout out to them, the Geron Family Foundation, a shout out to our students who were phenomenal. Really, it was a proud assembly. I was very proud of our kids and their engagement in terms of listening. And I happened to step out when at the end, kids were getting up to the microphone and asking questions or telling their stories to him. So there was time for Q&A. It was really quite impressive.
I love that they did a student poll and that so many kids responded.
Mm-hmm. It was fabulous. And so I probably should have changed this around. The last thing on my agenda is what has been hounding me, that it needs to come before you, and that's the calendar, the school year calendar for 24-25. And I feel like I'm late with this, but I'm late with this because of the new elementary school and things that keep coming up and popping up. And so my plan and my goal is to have it on the March 28th agenda for a first read. I have provided many concrete dates in this report that I will post, and I probably will send out in Parent Square tomorrow as well, so that parents know the key dates of when we're starting, when the vacations are. Vacations happen when the holidays are. Our last day of school is tentatively June 16th, but here are a couple of things that we're still working out. I've received several emails about, am I closing the district on voting day, November 4th? And I wouldn't have to close the district because we only have one polling place. On the other hand, I would not like to cancel high school, and there are some vacant buildings November 4th.
I was going to say, how about Clark School?
That's what I'm
handicap
discussing with
accessible.
Max Casper on Tuesday, I believe. We have a meeting. We were trying to coordinate schedules. I know what the problem's going to be, and that's going to be parking, but is that really our problem? The other piece that's really I'm concerned about is I would much rather have protesters on another side of town, if it's going to happen, than disturbing what might be happening at the high school. So that's one example of why I've held off on this. I want to talk to Max about it. We want to think it through. I want to talk to Brian Wilson, and if we need be the chief, and how could we manage it and mitigate it. But another thing that came up, and I think it's a brilliant idea, and Natalie Poverchuk in middle school actually brought this up, and that is, so the kids start August 28th, which is a Wednesday. That means Wednesday and Thursday they would have school. Friday they have off prior to Labor Day. Monday they have off. What Natalie thought about is, because so much is going to be happening with the new school, shouldn't the 28th and 29th perhaps be early release days for the elementary school, so that would give administration time to debrief with them. How did it go? What can we change after Labor Day? I think it counts as a full day. I think it's a really brilliant idea to kind of do a slow opening and have those 2 days be early release days, so that it gives administration and teachers time to regroup and think about, how are things going, check in on the temperature. Everybody's going to be amped up. That is another thought. The other thing that is not on here that I finalized the dates is, in the spring we typically do kindergarten visitation day. That would be pointless, so we're not doing that. And so right now, I have to add these in before I send it out. Kindergarten screening would be that Wednesday, Thursday, and Tuesday, and then the following Wednesday, the 4th, would be kindergarten visitation day.
So the first day that the school is open is also going to be screening day?
It would be screening day, yeah. There's plenty of spaces, you know that.
No, not space, just,
But they're by appointment, remember,
Okay.
it's very organized.
All
It's
right.
not like they're coming in rushed, and we wouldn't start it until after school started, you know, we would stagger that. So those ideas have been vetted, and I knew in my heart there was something like, I just couldn't get that down yet. We haven't put in the early release days, we have to get the calendar committee together for the early release days, but I would bring before the committee just the skeleton, you know, the days, the holidays, and all of that. And I have to look at the contract because I may insert myself in that calendar committee. It's just, there's so much. I don't need to run it, but I need to be informed and I need to talk about all of these things. So when you think, you know, what's keeping me up at night is these little things on my notebook that I'm writing down at 2 a.m. that I haven't thought about or who I need to talk to. So those are some things in the delay in bringing the calendars to the.
So, can I just ask you a question? So then Friday, August 30th, there is school or is not school?
There is not school.
Okay.
The contract says the Friday before Labor Day is a no-school day, and then Monday is off as well.
Just might want to add that in here, that's all.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
I would not be opposed and would actually encourage the high schoolers to not be here on Election Day. And, you know, maybe it's an opportunity that, you know, the kids go out and do, you know, volunteer in the town or go on a field trip, but
Yeah, I would like to further explore Clark. It's an open building.
We're gonna have an issue
Bad
with
voting.
stuff that's being stored there.
Pardon me?
We're gonna probably have an issue with stuff.
No,
that's being
because they're
stored
using
there.
the second floor in classrooms.
Oh, okay.
So the gym would be available.
Right, and they had voting there for years and
They
years.
did
and
have
years
it.
and
They
years,
did?
yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
they did, it just wasn't the entire town.
Yeah, it was just a precinct.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it was just a piece.
Max and I are meeting about it, and he is my town conduit to that. Obviously, he works for both town, general government and school department, and so we're meeting on Tuesday to discuss that further. But those are kind of, they're not excuses, but they're reasons why there's a
Yeah.
little bit of delay in this.
So would the other option be a half a day if you decided to have school here?
No, because the parking would just be a nightmare, and,
it's a national election, there's going to be bigger turnout.
right, it's not just a local election, which is why I think I've already had people reach out to me. One of the other things that I just want to mention that came across my desk today is I understand the farmer's market is looking for volunteers, so I have sent an email to Mr. Kohut and to the guidance department, and they're going to be sending out to juniors and seniors, anybody that's interested in volunteering at the farmer's market for community service hours can step up. So we're really partnering with the general government in certain ways, and it's just wonderful. And I have to say, I've said to some of you in silos that I think it was Amy who first brought the idea to me about having a satellite office at the high school, and I mistakenly said to my high school team, wow, I feel like I'm really making a difference. And they're like, you've been making a difference since you got here. But the beauty is, and this is why I wish, you know, maybe next year I'll have 3 offices, I don't know, one at the elementary school. I just want a standing desk looking over the balcony. That it's those pop-in visits. It's the door is open, it's a guidance person, do you have a minute? It's the unscheduled opportunities for people to run ideas, problem solve. And this week, it's so busy that I don't get my work done, but that's not what my work will happen, early in the morning or later at night. But it's the one-to-one connections of a teacher did something and had to come by and wanted to apologize. Somebody else had a parent issue. What would you do about this? Somebody else, how do I respond to this email? It's just, they're coachable moments that you might think, why do they come to the superintendent? But that's what makes this district special. is
You know,
that-
if I could, I would absolutely suggest that you have an office or a place to go at the new elementary school.
Agreed.
I think that sends an incredible message, and I completely agree with you. It's those water cooler conversations where you probably learn the most, realize a problem way before it would ever get to your desk.
It's so much more intimidating to just email and say, can I meet you for
Right,
this?
exactly.
I think it also,
Exactly.
I think it also speaks to the kind of district that we
Right,
are.
absolutely.
And, you know, that you aren't just up in an ivory tower. I think it's important that it's approachable.
I inserted myself
It's
in
your
this-
space, right?
Well, and
It's
I
your
also
space.
inserted myself in a high school student meeting, and now I will send an email to a student, say, come by my office. And they will come by my office, and I'm checking on them, and it just feels right. And I think particularly where it's a new elementary school, to divide my time there as well. I get made fun of for my flight attendant bag on wheels that I carry around with me. I get teased every time I leave my office, but I just take everything off my desk and put it in that little flight attendant wheelie bag.
Right. And, you know, I think the reality of it too is you have a lot to offer because you did elementary for years and years. And I think I would really guide you to have a space.
I've joked about it, but there's truth in every joke, right?
Yeah,
So there's
right.
seriousness in it.
Yeah.
I don't want to plop our entire elementary population there and not support the administration and
Correct.
not support the teachers. I want to walk those halls and make sure any kind of question that they can't get to Lori J. or Chris, they get to me. So, yeah, it's really been wonderful.
Can I just ask, you said keeping you up at night, and that was actually the exact phrase I was going to use, just going back to your elementary school piece of your report. Is there anything that you're seeing, any like red flag or concern that we're going to miss opening day or anything like that
Nope.
at this point?
Nope. We sit in construction meetings every Thursday. I sometimes can't sit through the entire thing. But it's typically an hour and a half, and they do a 3-week look ahead. I've learned a lot about construction. Cheryl's in there, Suzanne's in there, Max and LaTanya and myself, every Thursday. And they tell us what's gonna happen in the next 3 weeks, and the next week they report out on that. And they are, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they are on schedule.
There's definitely things that give them pause. There's definitely, like, when we're asking, like, you know, we're putting the solar panels on well before we thought we were gonna be able to, and they don't want it to interfere with anything they're doing. And the irrigation system, we learned today, the irrigation system under the soccer field needs to go in, but there's also curbs going in. So which one gets to go first? And we can't hold up the curbs because the irrigation isn't ready. And we just said, I think Max said today, if the curbs go in and the irrigation isn't ready, we don't put the irrigation in. We're not holding up anything. We just deal with that later. Like, it's just sort of like making decisions like that to just say, we're going. I think the team has been really, the construction team has been really good, but you can hear the stress in the construction.
Oh, they're
I
stressed.
mean, they're stressed.
They're stressed about
know-
staying on schedule.
They know they have to deliver it in time, and they've worked a lot of Saturdays. They've worked Sundays even. There's been a lot of, it's gonna be on time.
I have no doubt. I mean, furniture's going in. The biggest, I think, disappointment was, for me, was new furniture was gonna be delivered the middle of July. Now it's been pushed to the first week of August, but we're still at plenty of time.
Right.
And, you know, it's just
Plenty.
plenty. We'll all be breathing that school all summer. But I want to say the team is, you know, the next week you go in, there's an update on the 3-week schedule, the 3-week look ahead, and they are staying right on track.
And you said there's going to be drone footage inside?
There is drone footage inside that I will be sending out to everybody tomorrow is my goal. And at first and actually LaTanya does the voiceover. She does the tour. I told her she should be books on tape now because she has this very
It's a
lovely
totally different voice than
It's
she has.
totally different. She said it's my non-school voice.
I don't even know what it is.
I know. I said you should be reading books on tape or whatever. And so there's also music, and they were trying to make sure that I had the downloaded file, so it was a little bit delayed. But it is about a month old now, so I don't feel bad sending it to the teachers because what they'll see now is so far ahead of what the video looks like. But they see the cafeteria space, the gym space, the media center. So that will be going out. They did exterior drone footage and interior drone footage. So that's my superintendent's update, but I do have a couple of other items, and then we have one presentation tonight. And So the first item I have for the committee tonight is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the SEA union about something that was agreed upon during our interspace bargaining. If I think back, and we were all there were some two lingering items I can recall. One was the stipends. We were going to take the existing amount of stipends and reallocate them because there were some stipends that weren't being used, and there were new stipends that are clubs or positions that needed to be funded. And so we had a subgroup work together. Cheryl was part of it, I was part of it. I think Lisa Colts was part of it, and a few of the union leaders, and we did that. I think if we made a mistake, we didn't bring it back to the full committee, and in hindsight, we should have done that. What's before you tonight is another one of those issues, and that is that in order for the business office to function efficiently and to close out the current fiscal year and roll over and prepare, and Cheryl can correct me if I'm wrong, prepare for the new school year, we needed to get teachers to receive 5 individual deposits at the end of the year so that the money would be in the teachers' hands, and then the business office could roll over new employees that were no longer with the district, and give them more than a week to set that system up. And so in order to do that, the agreement was that the 403B match would go up by $50, from $400, which it has been consistently in the contract, to $450. Something just happened recently that triggered, oh my gosh, where's the memorandum of understanding of this? We don't have this in writing anywhere. And again, if I look back, we probably should have circled back to the committee, but we scrambled just because of a recent issue that happened. And I'm going to let Cheryl speak more to it, but that's kind of the broad view of why it's before you.
So what kind of prompted all of this was that the $400 403B match is set up as an annual payment. And so once we entered the new calendar year, the $400 payments all went out. And then it was brought to our attention, well, it's $400, we thought it was $450, and then that's at that point where the conversation was, oh, wait a minute, did we ever finalize any of these details? And so that was kind of what prompted this whole conversation.
So I believe there's a timing of paying that additional $50 that we're trying to accomplish by getting this
Correct.
Approved and signed tonight. But there is no doubt that we dropped the ball in terms of bringing these subgroup items back to the full committee. And I'm going to apologize for that and do better moving forward if we continue with IBB. I think we had a very successful session, and I'm hopeful that the committee will feel, if this is the 1 or 2 balls that we dropped, that you would approve this, because this was a discussion. I think the benefit of what this gives the district for an additional $50, and remember, it's only for those that match it. It's not given to everybody, is really beneficial to the district.
No, and we've been trying to get the 26
Yes.
pay employees on this kind of schedule for a long time.
My comment is that if we do IBB again, which I hope we do, because it was great, I think that we have to really keep better track of what's happening in the meetings. I know we started in the beginning. We took really good, like Margaret took minutes, and sometimes I took minutes, and we shared them all. And I think that I could look back in my notes and I could see we discussed this, but then I was just like, but then how did we leave it? We were going to have a subgroup, and I was just like, how do we close that loop? So I think that we all sort of need to take more responsibility or assign someone or something more
Well, I take
official.
ownership that this is the committee's contract with the teachers union. It is not the superintendent's contract. And if the committee members were not part of that, then it's my responsibility to bring it back to you and to have you make the decision. So I will own that piece of it. There was no malicious intent, no underhanded intent. It's just a ball that dropped. I also do want to say that Rebecca Buckland, president of the SEA, reached out and shared that they have a new field rep. It is no longer Town Lewis. It is a new gentleman who we have already reached out to have a meeting with. And our union shared with him what a solid relationship we have, because it sounds like he's been involved in some of these other districts that have been striking. And he said he takes the lead from the union leadership of the district. And so it was at their suggestion that we get together and meet before we even start anything, whatever we decide to do. So we have a meeting in a few weeks coming up just to introduce ourselves, talk about a relationship, talk about how hard we've worked to make it a strong relationship. And so I look forward to that meeting as well.
I'd like to encourage that the negotiations team be a part of that as well.
Okay.
Just as a formality.
Like negotiations team, like you and John, or
Yeah.
like what we did for IBB?
Well, I think at a minimum for John and I.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we, there were some definite rubs that came out during the tutor negotiations that I think, had the union rep had a better understanding of the relationship, may not have happened. And I know that that Margaret, who sat on the side of the tutors, was very helpful in getting things back on track. So, if we could just be a part of that, that would be, I think, a good way to start.
Sure, I made note of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I have a question regarding this MOU, which is, I know that not every teacher participates in this, but do we have a sense of how many do and what this is going to cost us?
Yeah, so I think when this was, I kind of looked back at my notes, because it'd been such a long time since we talked about all this. I think it was beginning of June was kind of the last communication around this. And I actually think the superintendent kind of sent out a summary. We had about 122 teachers at that point, and the incremental cost is about $5,000.
And that's obviously for the life of this contract.
Correct.
Okay. Because I think it's important for us to, because this doesn't sunset necessarily.
No, so
Not
it's kind
unless-
of forever, right.
So this is forever.
Right.
My other question was, I know that when we had talked about it during our prep work before interest-based bargaining, we had talked about whether or not this was something that actually had to be bargained. And I know that I don't want to take away from the good relationship, Superintendent, that you have with the union. But I just want to make sure that, in fact, this is something that we had to bargain versus.
You mean going to 20?
No, the fact that the idea that of handing the checks, handing those 4 or 5 checks
Right.
out at the end was something that we had suggested all along, and whether or not it's our legal right to do that versus whether or not we had to actually bargain it.
Well, I think what we came to is in order for them to ratify the entire proposal, we wanted to bring this to them as well. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't want this piece holding up the ratification of the entire contract by not inserting this, is how I think I was thinking of it, and giving them the power to vote for it.
Okay, so I'll say just straight out, I was a little blown away by reading this morning. I completely get that it just kind of went, kind of a little bit of a drop ball, and that's not a problem at all. I also thought, my question to myself was, I think I asked this actually during the negotiations, is couldn't we just say, this is how it's gonna be? Yet, even if we can say that, and this is just through IBB, knowing you as I do, this is like one of those, to me, a low-hanging fruit. For $5,000, okay? It makes everybody happy. It makes the business office, what we have heard, nightmares dealing with that August, September timeframe. I think this is an excellent step in the direction of just making everybody's life a little easier. And for $50 a person, you know what, maybe more people do the 403B. I hope they do. And you know what, I think it's a great thing. I really do. And it's one of those things, let's put it to bed. You know, we don't have to deal with it anymore.
I will say, I mean, if you're looking at $5,000 a year, I would imagine that would be just the amount of overtime maybe to pay somebody to come in and help cut those
Right.
checks. So from a practical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And again,
I just don't want to, I don't want you in the position of feeling beholden to act. Just leave it at that.
appreciate that.
Can I just, can I ask that this go on the website with, I didn't see the stipend MOU. Do we have?
We have a stipend chart, but I don't think it's up there, so I will make sure.
Because when I looked at the contracts online, the contract that's on there is the one that ends in 19, and I know we extended.
So it has all been put together, because
Yeah.
that drives me nuts as I look for changes in the contract, and every time I'm referring to it. So actually, Maureen Karen put everything together, and the union leadership was going to work over February vacation to check all those edits, and then they recognized and understood and were told there's an MTA group that will do that for free.
Oh.
So that whole contract and all of the MOUs and all of the amendments are all with MTA now, making sure they're all put into one document, but this would go
Yeah,
up there as well.
But we have to approve that before it
Yes,
goes up.
yeah,
Yeah, I just.
yeah, they're
I
gonna
just
send
think-
it back to us after that work is done.
Because I'd also like an understanding of what the changes in the stipends netted, because I know that as you were just describing, there were some new positions that some positions that we were talking about moving away from, and some that you were looking to add, especially at the high school, I believe, as it relates to, help me out here, like the department heads and what their responsibilities were.
Right.
So I'd like to understand that.
Right.
Absolutely, you should. And we do have that, are you pulling that up right now?
Yeah,
I knew she was pulling it up.
Of course.
It's June 5th. I know that it's June 5th, 2023, because I keep pulling that document up. But what was the,
so the actual total change, and it's, part of it's, a little hard because you have to guesstimate how many mentors, right? Because that was one of the stipends that kind of changed. But based off our best guess, we were within $3,000.
but you should see the list of what we added, because you heard about what they wanted to
Right.
add and what they wanted
Yeah.
to take out. So we will
And we
get
heard
that
what
to
you wanted to add and
Yes,
take out.
yeah. So we will get that to you.
I would just say that I think we are in a unique position because of your tenure, that the things that perhaps 10 years ago we might have been more specific with, that we are maybe not as much now. And I don't, for our predecessors who are coming, I want to make sure that we have crossed all of our Ts and dotted our Is. And I think it's, and I say this as much to you, Suzanne, that, as the chair, even if it is not financially related, any change in those contracts have to come to us.
It's your contract with them, it's
Yeah.
not mine.
Yeah.
And that is a great reminder.
Yeah, yeah.
So are we comfortable just voting tonight without a first read? I know we've done that in the past. I mean, that's kind of a question for the group.
Well, we don't legally have to have a first read.
Okay. And we just tended
Do
to
you-
do that.
I put it under the vote section, vote requested, but
do not.
it's up to the committee.
Yeah, because it's not policy.
Okay,
It's
great.
not, that has to
I
happen.
just want to make sure, I don't want to break our own rules.
Right. I mean, I'm comfortable, we've discussed it as an overall issue
Right.
Yep, same.
so many times.
Okay.
Can I ask the chair if it's possible we can just vote on this one item now?
Because you're going?
I do have one other question. Ms. Stella, you were saying that they got their checks at the beginning of the year, so do we pay that ahead, or are we paying that behind?
Well, it's midway through the fiscal year for the
So are we
purposes.
paying it before they've actually contributed it?
No, the payment only happens if they've hit at this point, the $400
Okay,
threshold. So it, it could be, like if somebody has a deduction for it, but they haven't hit the threshold, the payment won't go through.
okay.
That's a good question. So, can we take this out of order?
Yeah, we can certainly vote for this. Can someone make a motion to vote for the SCA MOU for the 26 pays for the 403B?
Yeah, I will make a motion that the Swampscott School Committee accept a memorandum of agreement between, by and between the Swampscott Educational Association and the Swampscott School Committee, as we have already discussed.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Amy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Super.
So the next item is the tutor contract, which I put on, but certainly I wasn't part of, and so John and Amy, if you want to lead this.
Well, so this is a contract, hopefully you guys have had the opportunity. We presented it, I think, a month ago in executive session. There have been no changes since then, other than that the new union of tutors have agreed to this and signed off on it. I want to thank Margaret Ardman in particular for seeing this through as some good guidance to a group of employees that we have a lot of turnover among, just because of the nature. I'm looking at you, Martha, because you know it so deeply. We have a lot of turnover in that group just by nature of the role. And so thank you to Margaret. And what this ultimately is based on is the contract that I'm having a complete brain cramp, the ESP union has. That was the sort of basis of it, and they have very similar, if not identical, benefits.
That was actually my question about Article 7, sick leave, temp leave. That was the same as the other contracts?
I don't, Ms. Stella, I don't remember off the top of my head if they are exactly the same, but they are certainly in line with the direction that most unions
We're
are going.
Okay, great. That's very well stated by you right there. Great. I just wanted to ask that question.
And, obviously the highlight of it being, I know that they were most, the goal of unionizing was for job security. And, one of the most important pieces of this was identifying a policy of, if we have to downsize, what that means and how different roles are tapped and who winds up leaving. It wasn't the easiest, but we got to a good place. And then the other piece of it are the COLAs, and we gave them a 2% COLA, which we in fact had already done, and the next, in the following year is a 2.5% COLA. So
kudos to you guys for
So with that, I would just,
shepherding this.
yeah, with that, I would just ask for the committee's approval so that we can ratify it.
They have already ratified.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm assuming our legal counsel is.
Oh, yes.
Someone want to make a motion to approve the tutor contract?
All right, I will make a motion to approve the contract between the tutors union and the Swampscott School Committee.
Second. Thanks, Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Thank you all.
Good job.
Okay, that concludes my report. No, it doesn't. Sorry. The most important item tonight is our presentation on the Student Opportunity Act. So Dr. Jean Bacon has worked hard with the team, and we'll dive into a student. You have the plan itself, and then you have a presentation that Dr. Bacon is going to present tonight with her team. So sorry.
Thank you. I'm going to start us off.
Do you
Welcome.
want
You
to
guys-
be able to, or do you want Suzanne to control it?
I'm fine right here. Thank you.
No, I'm saying, do
On
you,
the screen?
Huh?
Yeah, you guys can pull it up, and whoever's linked up,
Oh.
yeah,
just pull it up and then.
I just didn't know if you wanted to.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need to drive, no, thank you.
Okay.
Too many variables all at
Download it
once.
to-
Thank you for the opportunity.
Should I download it to?
Well, I think you want the presentation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
You can certainly look at the plan later, but it's a little dense for a
It is.
community presentation.
Yes.
Mhm. Awesome, thanks. All right, so thanks for having us. The purpose of this presentation is the Student Opportunity Act it's a plan for the next 3 years, so 2024 through 2027. And as Superintendent Angelakis was just alluding to, Dr. Bacon, Jean, myself, and a large group, truly a community and team effort, have been part of this plan. So just noting, although that we're the presenters and facilitators tonight, that this really is a group effort. On the agenda, what we're going to present tonight is the result, like I said, of a number of building level, all grade level administrators, plus district level administrators, and then, as we'll discuss a little bit more later on, the folks from the community, we have parents and caregivers, all educator input, faculty and staff have had an opportunity to submit their feedback and their input, and then what you'll see tonight is what we've pulled out from a number of evidence-based strategies to put together for just a few of those. Focused largely on, as we'll talk about in a minute, the Student Opportunity Act. What is that, and how it all came together, and why it's so important. Noting truly that, as you know, this is aligned with our district vision and strategy. So although we'll be talking tonight about achievement gaps and learning outcomes and experiences for a family, that is work that continues across the district in other domains and areas and initiatives. For the purpose of this particular plan, the Student Opportunity Act plan, we have chosen to focus on some key areas. So although you'll see these two key areas focused on tonight with supporting strategies, as you know, there's a lot of work happening in district in other overlapping and supporting plans that are similar, and there's also work being done. Passing it on to Dr. Bacon.
Okay, so if you can go ahead. We just wanted to remind you what the Student Opportunity Act is. It was an act that was passed by the legislature back in 2019 to infuse more money into the Chapter 70 allocations and to recalculate a different formula for allocating Chapter 70 funds across the school districts. This next year, Swampscott will get about $160,000 more than we would have gotten in the old allocation formula. But the legislature, as part of this legislation, required that all school districts in the state submit a plan to indicate how they're going to use that money and more to specifically close student gaps in learning experiences and outcomes through this additional funding that they've put into the public education system. And so our charge in the planning process was to set some aggressive goals for closing some of our gaps, to select from a very specific list of evidence-based programs that we can use to close those gaps, and to articulate how we can justify this $163,000 that they're giving us, plus more money that we're going to be devoting to these initiatives. And as Emily mentioned, it fits into the district strategy. It's not different than the district strategy, but the whole district strategy that the superintendent presented several weeks ago is a much broader and expansive document. It covers basically everything we're doing to try to improve student learning, and the focus of the Student Opportunity Act is much more narrow and for the purposes of communicating with the state how we're really focusing on student learning and opportunity gaps. Okay, next
Want me
slide.
to open the link or just keep going?
Pardon?
Want me to open the summary of results or just keep going?
No, I just put that in there in case you wanted to look at because we submitted the first plan back in 2020. If you wanted to look at the results that we got from that effort, you're welcome to read that document at your leisure. So the first thing we want to talk about is how we looked at our data and chose our two focus outcomes. So the first step was to do a deep dive into all our outcome and opportunity data. And I've linked for you at the bottom. You don't have to open it now, but again, at your leisure, you could open that DESE data dashboard, which is a new tool that DESE put together to help us think about the gaps that we see among our various students groups. It could be students of color, students with disabilities, multilingual learners, low-income students, or any other group that we define as not meeting the same, having the same opportunities or outcomes as all students looked at together. So one of the most significant gaps that we noticed in academic performance was for our students with disabilities at the middle school. And you can see in this chart that at the middle school in 2023, only 10% of our students with disabilities met our expectations on the ELA MCAS or the Math MCAS. And to give that a little bit more context, however, if you go to the next slide, this is hard for you to see at such a distance, but the first set of bars in each of the graphs is the elementary school. The middle set of bars is the middle school. The elementary school is the middle set of bars is the middle school, and the right side set of bars is the high school. The blue bars, which you see the best, are the percent of all students who are meeting exceeding expectations. ELA is on the left, math is in the right-hand set of graphs. So if you look at just the blue bars, you can see that there's kind of a trough in the middle school, right? And that's not something that's unique to Swampscott. All across the state, the middle grades struggle most to meet and exceed expectations on MCAS. And if you pick out any color bar, which represent, students of color is the red bar, English language, students who've ever been English language learners is the gold bar, low-income students is the green bar, and Hispanic and Latino students is the final orange bar. All of them sort of share that similar pattern. So in our thinking, in the committee's thinking, this isn't just an issue for students with disabilities and the way we educate those students. It's something broader in terms of curriculum instruction for all students at the middle levels. So you'll see when we get to some strategies later, we're thinking about it through both those lenses, that there's something that we need to do to help boost curriculum and instruction for all students, and other things we need to do to help our students with disabilities achieve at higher levels.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yep.
So on the high school, on both graphs, the ever English learners has fallen off. Is there that, what's with that?
Yes, that's right. If anyone asks, this is the explanation. So DESE, if you look back at that DESE dashboard, you'll see that there's no data there either for English language learners. It's because in high school we only test one grade. And in any one grade, there's so few English language learners, and particularly at the high school level, where by that time most kids have gone through and graduated from the English language learner services. Right. So unless the group is large enough, they won't report out the data.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why that's absent. Okay, you can go to the next one. So the second, we looked at a broad range of data, and the second thing that we picked out as a place where we really felt we could have an impact with some targeted efforts over the next 3 years was on chronic absenteeism. And again, this is not something that's unique to Swampscott. The entire state is suffering from an epidemic of chronic absenteeism among its students. But when we looked at our data, these are a couple things we noticed. So if you see at the bottom of the first column, 19% of our students last year were chronically absent, which means they missed 10% or more of all school days. So 18 or more school days were missed by 19%, about a fifth of all our students. But if you look, for example, at the top of that column, English language learners, 37% of our English language learners across the district missed 18 or more days, almost twice the rate, or a little bit more than twice, no, almost twice the rate for everybody overall. Right? So that's how you sort of read that chart. And then I'd like you to look at the last column. So another thing we thought about is, yes, we have these gaps, but are they gaps we can really reasonably move? So then we looked at the gaps at the state. So in the last column, what that's telling you is that statewide, English language learners are 12% more likely to be have chronic absenteeism than all students across the state. So the gap statewide between English language learners and all students is 12%. But then if you look at the middle column, the gap for English language learners in Swampscott is 18%. So that tells us we have room to move here. right? We should be doing at least as well as the state, if not better, because that's how Swampscott runs. Generally, we're doing a little bit better than the state on almost any measure you look at. So we were looking for things where there's an opportunity to move. So English language learners were an opportunity, and also our African American students here, in terms of the gap, our gap being greater than the statewide gap. So we did a little bit more diving, and we learned a couple things, that among our English language learners, most of the chronic absenteeism, they were much more likely to be chronically absent as elementary students than at middle or high, whereas the general trend is just the opposite. So for all students, you're more likely to be chronically absent as you go up, elementary, middle, high. For English language learners, it was the opposite direction. So, and also for newcomer English language learners, students who had been here less than a year were much more likely to be chronically absent. So we feel like we have some very direct levers that we can push to try to increase chronic absenteeism for those students. And similarly, we also looked at the chronic absenteeism among our Boston resident students, because we felt that that might be a significant challenge. And in fact, it was. They have the highest chronic absenteeism rates in the district. So we need to do a little bit more investigation to figure out whether that's a transportation issue, a belonging issue, what are the issues that are going on. But we felt that those were the two things that we really wanted to focus on. So as you see in this next slide, these are the two areas that we picked out to really focus on in the next 3 years: improving the academic achievement of our students with disabilities in the middle school, and improving reducing chronic absenteeism rates among multilingual learners and our Boston resident students. Okay.
Should we pause for any questions?
Yeah, so I want to pause before we go into like the strategies, which Emily's going to talk about. We could pause for any questions.
So are we calling the black students on the previous slide Boston resident students?
No, they're two different. We just did a deeper dive. We did more analysis. Just like with English language learners, we figured out it's the little ones and the newcomers. That's where we have to put our effort. Among our African American students, it's particularly our METCO students that face a lot of challenges with attendance.
Thanks.
As you're doing this deeper dive, and I'm really curious, is Swampscott, how does Swampscott fit into those communities that have METCO students coming from a distance away as far as chronic absenteeism?
So that we can't tell, because the state doesn't calculate things for METCO students. So that's why we had to then go into our attendance, all our internal systems to really kind of parse out and see, what's going on and where the issues are.
Well, I wonder if also that has, as you do a deeper dive into it, I'm thinking about, Superintendent, how you were talking about, increasing the number of kids who are coming, and what the correlation is amongst the ages of those students. Is it too much for a kindergartner to be on the bus at 5 o'clock in the morning? Or is it too much for a 10th grader to be on the bus at 5 o'clock in the morning? Because I can understand how it's a long day.
Right.
And if you miss it, right, it's,
Right, if you miss it,
if
there's
you miss
not
the
a lot
bus,
of
that's
options.
it, that's it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but that's more investigation we'll be doing. But that's how we came to our two outcomes that we wanted to focus on in this.
And my other question was we can see that the English language learners or any one of these groups is more so than any of our average student. But is there anything that stands out, like in terms of, like, we know that it's more, but is it by a lot more or by a little bit more? Are we talking about a day or two more? Or are we talking about 3 weeks more?
Well, it's not measuring the average attendance. It's measuring how many kids reach that threshold of 18 or more days absent.
Yeah.
And if you're an English language learner in Swampscott, you're twice as likely to reach that threshold as if you're just the average student.
Yeah, I guess I'd also be curious to know by like, once you're absent more than that threshold, does it become like a snowball, and then are you absent a ton more versus just a little bit more?
There's a pretty wide range,
Yeah.
right? So when we've been looking at our absence data lately, because we're doing some other work on that, kids who've been absent anywhere from 10 to like 40%.
Wow.
And there's not a lot of kids who are upward of 20. I mean, I would say most of the kids right now, when we're looking at it just for this year, current data, proportion of the school days so far that they've missed, there's big chunk between like 10 and 19. And then, you know, maybe 2/3 of them between 10 or 19, and then there's maybe a third who are already over, you know, who are at 20% or higher.
I will just add, connected to this plan, but not as part of the plan, as Jean was saying, we are, you know, when you look at some of these numbers, I think we all had some of that. I can see some of your reactions. It's noticeable. And in some cases, we feel like those numbers are pretty striking. I just want to reinforce that the work is happening, the daily monitoring, the outreach, the investigations, the communication, the supports, the interventions, that is work that is happening in the district. And we also, you know, something that we're putting on all of our lists as school administrators is to really introduce like a public relations campaign around attendance and the importance of being in school, and that time in terms of instruction and social emotional learning and a sense of belonging, that is critical to our students' success. So we're just, every presentation, all the conversations with the families, we'd love you to be on board with that too. Again, in connection to the plan, not directly, but you know, it's something that we're going to be really focusing on, and you'll see that from us too.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, at the leadership team meeting, we were brainstorming ways to do it, and one of the things that came up in a conversation with us is, do parents have a baseline of what's appropriate?
That's a great point.
We came up with the decision that with the timing of the report cards, a letter would come from central office and myself, giving them an alert that this is a problem, and here is what your typical student should be absent.
Yeah.
And please take a closer look at your child's absences. So it was an opportunity to educate what is appropriate. We don't even know if, you know.
Maybe they think that's normal.
And not even
Right.
what's typical, but
What's appropriate.
Yeah, because, you know, we know that all of our kids are absent more than they should be. So, you know, like at what point do we really see impact?
So we are, just to
Yeah.
talk about that campaign, we really spent a lot of time on this at leadership the other day. So thank you.
And as Jean said, it's not unique to Swampscott. It has been widely discussed by the commissioner and other Commonwealth.
And the Secretary of Education, Patrick Tutwiler, does a commercial on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Right, I've seen that, yes.
A big banner outside of Salem High School, and the big
Yes.
banner on the fence.
When you
It's
walk,
important
drive
to go
down
to school.
Highland Ave.
Yeah.
But he's on there talking about it. It is the commissioner, the Secretary of Education.
Maybe we share that.
Everybody, yep.
You know, it'd be an interesting, and it just kind of dawned on me, I know, you know, because of various factors, we have quite a few early release days. And it'd be interesting to find out if a high percentage of these absences revolve around early release days, because I'm just thinking from, let's just stick to a high school student, a 10th or 11th or 12th grader. I'm gonna get up at, you know, 5 in the morning to be in school for 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Is that worth I don't wanna say worth my time, because it's not what I mean. But if I'm gonna skip school, not go to school, maybe I just don't do, it's a half a day, I can make it up.
Yeah, cost benefit
But it might be
analysis
something
from an
to-
adolescent mind, sure.
Right, as you're doing your, you know, your research, that might be just an interesting
Yeah.
data point.
Thank you.
Fine.
Anything else before we move on? I don't want to rush you. Okay. So now kind of moving into the strategies to support the SOA plan. So DESE has some guidelines naturally that they'd like us to consider along the way. So as part of the plan, we were required to, again, the community effort, and I'll discuss who is in this community again more specifically in a sec. We're required to choose from a list of 30 different evidence-based practices to implement over the next 3 years. So it's the 3-year plan. Out of this 30 evidence-based strategies, we are recommending that we, you know, as part of this plan, again, commit to 5 strategies to achieve our 2 target outcomes. So the first 2 strategies are specifically focused on our goal of closing the gaps academically at the middle school for our students with disabilities. So as you know, we have already adopted the high-quality instructional materials in math for grades K through 8, and as we reported last fall in the 2023 MCAS overview, the results and the work from that intervention and that support is already bearing fruit in terms of improved student outcome in math. We are preparing to implement a new high-quality literacy curriculum in the elementary grades next fall, and our recommendation as part of this work is to do the same thing through all the way through grade 8. So it won't just go through grade 5 from elementary, it'll go 5, 6, 7, 8. And so that will hopefully be complete, that is to be implemented by the end of the plan in 2027. So that's one of them in terms of adopting and implementing the high-quality instructional materials. In addition to that, again, focusing on middle school and the population for the students with disabilities, expanding, because we already do have a co-teaching model at the middle school, but expanding and enhancing that co-teaching model for students with disabilities. So where general education and special education teachers collaborate in the classroom. And, you know, so if you have a classroom of 15, that classroom always has 2 instructors, a special education teacher, a licensed teacher, and a licensed content teacher. So we're currently using the model in grades 5 through 12, and so the goal is to expand it also to the upper elementary grades. We will provide professional development. Again, we did have that some years ago. I forget exactly, somewhere between 5 and 7 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't quote me on that. But so we are going to do that. Again, the high school is already working on that this year. So the goal is to bring and enhance that model and that practice at the middle school level. So just make sure.
Can I just ask a question before you move on?
Yeah.
It just kind of dawned on me. Ms. Ray, maybe we can add some color to this one. The percentages on slide 4, 2023 percentage of students with disabilities meeting exceeding expectations on MCAS. Does that include or exclude the students that are no longer in the Swampscott setting? And are either in
a district?
Yeah.
No, it would not include that.
Okay,
because
great.
we're looking just at the middle school.
Thank you.
And would include all disabilities, so you know,
Right,
in
yeah.
moderate.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me go back to my other side. Give me 1 second, please.
She's in the right place. She's in the right place.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my eyes are not quite that strong. So the next 2 evidence-based strategies, again, were pulled from that list of 30. We believe, as the community that put this all together, that these will address both the chronic absenteeism as well as the academic outcomes at the middle school level. So we have been working, so already underway is our work to develop a strong MTSS system. So again, that stands for multi-tiered systems of support. So over the last 3 years, expanding slowly based on our funding and each individual school readiness. So we want to continue to move forward with that work over the next 3 years to better support our struggling learners. So MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, is introduced across 3 domains. So that would be social, emotional, behavioral, and academic. So looking at systems that are standardized and more universal to help support academic outcomes at the middle school level. And then in addition to that, and again, you'll see that we're confident that this will be able to reap benefits across levels, is that we have been working on more effective school-to-family partnerships, and that we believe that we do need these strong partnerships with families to address chronic absenteeism as well as the progress. And the next step that we'd like to use this plan for funding and support, and the next step is to train all of our and provide the professional development for all teachers and administrators for doing that work. What does effective school partnership look like? And make sure everyone's on the same page and implementing the same systems, and has the support, the confidence, and the tools to be able to do that effectively. Any questions on those? Oh, moving on. So finally, we feel that the new elementary school will offer many new opportunities to enhance positivity in our school environment, not only for our elementary students, but also through deepening the collaborations between elementary and middle school students. Certainly, given the proximity of the 2 grade spans, to improve students' social emotional skills, mental health, and well-being. And as one of you noted, I can't remember who mentioned, just the opportunities for increased family collaboration across grade levels too, is going to enhance, we hope, for that chronic absenteeism and sense of belonging. So, any questions?
Is there a timeline for this? Like-
Within the 3 years.
So-
Once it's approved, and so we're getting to that part, once it's approved, and again, we're seeking your approval this evening, we will then nail down our timeline, the action steps, who's responsible, how do we do it.
And you have to show proof every year or just after 3 years?
No, every year.
Every year. Sorry if you said that and I wasn't listening.
No, that's okay. No, we didn't say that yet.
Superintendent, could I just ask just your general thoughts of this and,
Oh, I've been part of it
I
every
know.
step of the way, so I wholeheartedly support. It's what Dr. Bacon said at the beginning. This is part of our district strategy. It's just the money is attached, the plan needs to be submitted, and the focus narrowed. And so it's everything that we're already doing as part of our broader plan. It's just documented and submitted to the state. This group has done a magnificent job, and they'll show you who else has been involved in this, the district leadership team.
So I have two questions that are not so much, I think, for you guys, but probably more superintendent for you and Ms. Stella. I'm thinking specifically about the fact that we have $163,000 specifically coming in for this. I would definitely love to hear, it doesn't have, not tonight, about how specifically we do spend that money. But I think that it really speaks more to the work that we have to do with the town in terms of them understanding that we're getting $163,000 more from the state, and that doesn't mean that they can, that in the same way that we did during COVID, and we got ARPA funds, that we could then use that to work on, to fill in gaps in our budget, that this is very specifically to meet a specific need, and it's not just the $163,000, but the monies that we have to spend on top of that, which means that our budgets are growing at more than 2.2%. And I'm thinking specifically about the conversation that we had during budget season about rolling out the new, I think it was the English.
It's the
literacy program, and about the fact that we thought, okay, well, maybe we roll it out over a couple of years instead of, do it all at once. And clearly, that's going to impact the work that you do. So how do we make sure that that happens, and that the 163,000 plus whatever, this gives me anxiety, because, and I know that if it's giving me anxiety, it's certainly giving you anxiety.
There is some good news that Dr. Bacon has pointed out to me more than once. Some of these literacy programs are being piloted, and some of them are in different buckets in terms of expense. And so, when we proposed that and brought the budget forward, we may not be in that position, depending on the program that comes out on top. It might be able to be funded and rolled out. So just as the calendar, there are so many moving parts to this literacy program, because we started to panic. I mean, we met with Dr. Bacon early on, but now we're finding the more the teachers are piloting, there's different prices, and it may work out. But your point is valid in that the 163 can't be paid to utilities.
Right.
It is very specific. We are under the guidance of DESE for certain requirements, and to meet, come up with certain plans. Money is attached to showing growth and progress, and particularly in the areas of these subgroups and these gaps and achievement gaps. So our focus for the money we get from the state is academic or programmatic versus being able to just use it for operational costs.
Right.
In a general sense.
When this money comes in, this extra money, it's coming in through Chapter 70, so it's going, or is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit,
Like it's
not really quite as cleanly delineated as you just.
Yeah, it's not a check for
It's just part of
$160,000.
It's part of that big Chapter 70 thing that we get. You can spend that in any way you want. There's no restrictions on it. The reason I brought that up is because I remember when I did this like 3 years ago, you asked, one of the questions the committees had was like, well, how much actually do we get from this new thing, right? So DESE doesn't publicize that. I had to go digging because I knew you would ask. So I went ahead and I went to DESE and I said, like, how can we tell how much. And they directed me to certain budgets, and then they had me, subtract certain things, and I could figure out, like, this is the difference in the funding formula. But if you look at the actual plan, and you see the budget associated with the plan, it's actually $3.3 million worth of things we're talking about here.
I was gonna say, it sounds a lot more.
Yeah.
than
Yeah, yeah.
163.
Right.
On a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
note, like in terms of, yes, we're talking about funding, the investment that we're doing now is going to substantially affect special education costs. And that's why this is such a good plan.
Yeah.
Investing in the middle school and a strong MTSS system will lower, that's our highest number. We have 25% almost now of students on IEPs. That's far too high. It should be about 18.
Yeah.
This investment should shift that, and that is that is the right thing to do. It actually gets services to students in a much quicker way, too. We have a whole bunch of regulatory requirements right before we can even implement services in special education. This allows us to go right in and do it immediately, which is great. So I'm really excited about this plan.
So the good news being that we targeted in there so that,
Yeah.
that hopefully it doesn't have the lasting spend.
Correct. Well, it's going to shift the resources to MTSS, which is where we
Yeah.
want it to be.
But I just think, from a PR standpoint, I think it's incumbent upon us to really be talking to the town about the specifics and these achievement gaps that we have to meet. Because, like right before town meeting, I got a phone call, for example, from somebody asking about, the money for homeless transportation. And they were like, is this even a problem for us? I was like, yeah, because this is actually money that we've already spent. And so, I think just understanding the very real gaps that we have, and understanding that this 163,000 plus it is really isn't to take the place of town money towards us, but it just in addition to. I feel like I'm saying the same thing all the time.
Do you, Stella, do you keep track of like money like this outside of the regular budget? Are there other monies that we're getting through Chapter 70 that are like 100% earmarked to something like this? Like, there's not. I was just thinking, like, is there other things that, like, is there?
No, and I mean, to Dr. Bacon's point, this isn't even truly earmarked.
No.
Right.
It just is
It's just
part
more.
of our,
I guess I'm
It's
just,
more.
so I don't mean earmarked even, but like things that we know we're getting this money because we have to spend it this way.
no, I mean, the majority of even the actual funding formula behind SOA is certain rates for certain groupings of students and an inflation factor.
Right.
So that is, the SOA money is actually just a new formula with which they're determining our aid. I mean, certainly Chapter 70 is something that we look at consistently, as evidenced by the town meeting we just had. So when we realize that we are getting more, we are going back to the town and requesting that that's coming to us. The biggest factor for Swampscott probably over the next couple of years that would impact our Chapter 70 is the enrollment increasing, as well as if our low-income population increases, because that has a much higher rate that they associate in determining the aid.
So I guess to beat a dead horse, in the same way that when monies came into us through ARPA and the town looked at that as a great way to subsidize our budget as opposed to include in the funding that the town needs to spend, I think that it's incumbent on us to because they're looking at it as a new formula of Chapter 70 funding, that it doesn't become oh, great, we're getting more from the state, so we, that means a little bit less for Swampscott citizens to pay. Right. That we have to stay, as rabid about it, if not more, because probably to get this money, we've got to also be spending them, our own monies.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
much more than
Yeah,
they're
than the hundred,
benefiting, yeah.
$160,000, $170,000. So I like this, like I said, this is just one of those things that gives me a lot of anxiety, so.
Me too.
You ready to move
Great
on?
presentation, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Oh, can I just tell you
There's a couple
really
more
quickly
things.
about the process?
So there's one
This
more.
probably
one
should have
advance-
maybe gone a couple slides before.
Yeah, before we had.
Sorry about
questions.
that. Before we got to the strategy, however, we would like to let you know, just so it is clear, that it really was a community effort, and it was actually, I think we would all agree, because many of us who are sitting here were involved in some of the community portions of it. The unanticipated outcome was additional community conversations, family connections, and relationship development. So that part, even though we're doing, asking for input on a particular plan with particular monies, it was a great opportunity, again, just to engage with families. So before we move on to the vote and asking for your approval, the way that the process works is that our district administrator level team meets, we look at the data initially, we brainstorm, we go look at more data, some of the links that you have in the presentation. We kind of discuss as a group what we think is important related to our larger district plan and what we're seeing and how that's impacting all of the students and families. So we kind of had our own ideas, and then we offered opportunities to meet with all of the faculty and staff in the district. So we had a Zoom opportunity. We presented a more in-depth version of this plan. We gathered input, and that added to the considerations that we had for our evidence-based strategy. So we did a very similar process with the families as we did with the faculty and staff. And so we looked at all of those 30 strategies. Folks voted and noted which ones were the most important to them, given their experiences. And again, there were many, many similarities and parts that were aligned already. And so we took that feedback. So we had an in-person family event that lasted a few hours. Assistant Superintendent Martha Raymond was helpful in supervising our babysitting with the students. We had student leaders come out. Jean coordinated food, and so the parents and families had an opportunity to sit down and have conversations while there was some, we say babysitting, it's really, student volunteers from the high school and the middle school, which again is awesome collaboration for everyone to kind of see us together. We offered a follow-up Zoom for folks in the evening, so families and caregivers also had that opportunity. If they couldn't make it in person, they had the opportunity to have those discussions and listen to the same presentation on Zoom. And then we kind of went back, looked at all the considerations again, and that's how you see the plan really coming together. So it was deliberate in its intention to seek input, consider the input really honestly, and it did help inform the way our plan kind of evolved and materialized. So, I think I covered everything in the notes here. Is there anything I missed, Jean? I did a little ad-libbing, as I do.
I just want to acknowledge that the central planning team was Emily, myself, Mrs. Raymond, Mrs. Wilson, Martha, Aaron Wilson, Craig Harris, Dennis Kohut, and Lori Sanborn. So that was the core planning team. And again, then we did bring our initial thoughts to the entire district leadership team of 20 people, and they all had an opportunity. All these people had an opportunity, and then finally, the whole thing went to the superintendent, and she was obviously part of the district leadership team as well. So she's had many passes at this through the process.
Great job.
I have one more thing, and I just wanted to share a question that I had forwarded to Dr. Bacon earlier. Recently, when I was, and it doesn't really have sort of a natural place in here based on the strategies that you guys are putting in place, but I feel like it's sort of important to put out there. When I was at this Metcone training, Dr. Arnisa Asante Jackson, who I can't say enough good things about, how I felt very lucky to just sort of bask in her glow. She's pretty terrific. She said something that actually really stunned me, and she talked about racial equity. As we talked about racial equity strategy, she talked about the need to dismantle leveled classrooms, and it really took me aback, since that's something that I have always known as a parent, and certainly even long ago in my days as a student. So I put this out there to Dr. Bacon and what the thoughts were on this. And if it factors into our work at all, because I would imagine that not unlike the conversation that we had a couple weeks ago about student, like what ranking students are, that leveling in class. When I pushed back on it a little bit, I said, isn't this just a way for teachers who are already, have classes that are too big and can't really, spend the kind of time with their students that they would like to? Isn't this a way of helping everybody out? And she really pointed out that it was a method of gatekeeping, and that it took me by surprise. And so what very little work that I've done since then, reading about it, I wanted to hear from Dr. Bacon, because this is, it's all about closing the achievement gap. So that's a long segue to something that I know that you can't answer here, but I think it's something for us all to be thinking about.
We'll marinate.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because I think our solution that we've been using right now is to try to get more kids to take APs and honors and things like that. And it's like that's what our solution has been right now. But it's interesting.
I was,
Yeah. No.
it floored me, so.
Yeah. No. Curious.
So I would respectfully request that we take this out of order and vote so our employees can go home.
All right.
I will make the motion to approve this SOA plan.
I will second.
Super. All those in favor? That's easy.
And I actually have one more item on my superintendent's agenda, and that is for Martha to talk about, Mrs. Raymond to talk about the tiered focus monitoring review that we had, and the fact that we had no findings. And so Martha, take it away.
Ooh.
Yes, I'm very proud to report. This is every 3 years we go through our tiered focus monitoring. They take standards from special education and civil rights. 3 years ago we had no findings. We also had no findings again. Really an amazing team. I will want to definitely highlight Dr. Bacon and her work, Erin Wilson and all her work, and Craig Harris and our whole special education team for writing. I'm especially proud of our discipline plan that got approved, our bullying prevention plan, and all of the work that Craig Harris does on the spreadsheets and that immediate, transparent information that we have immediately when something is happening in the district. Our protocols and procedures around Title IX, all of those things were what we had to present, and it's just really, when those protocols and procedures are tight, like they are here, it allows us to talk about what we just were talking about with Dr. Bacon, and not being moored down in it's really preventative, right? We're not, it allows us to move forward. So I'm really proud of it. It is unusual. If you want to check other districts, you have to post it on your website. So if you look at our neighboring districts, they will have theirs out, and I check. And most have corrective actions, and corrective actions are a lot of work, to do. They're important. They're a learning process, but I am really proud of the team and what we've accomplished. And we have it all in a shared drive, because one of the things I always think about is one day I will retire, and I want to make sure every single system that we have in play outlasts our team. And we've really, really been thoughtful about that someone could just receive it and move on and carry on. Yeah. So really excited.
You're being very humble, but it's all under your leadership. You can shout out other people, but you're the leader, you're the conductor, and shout out to you and everybody else that has had a part of it. So thank you.
I would love to see that go out in a notice to the
I can parent square it out.
Yeah,
I have to do it anyway. I have to put it out publicly, and I have to post it on the website.
Well, I with all due respect, I would like it to not just be an announcement, but a proud announcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so maybe you are a little bit humble. You might not be the right person to.
Well, it is exciting. It's
I think
good for our
the accolades
district.
should be there.
Yeah, it really is a pretty big deal.
especially with.
Amy, I
what's-
missed what you said, so what are you saying?
Well, I just think, especially with what's happening in the news, very locally, people are very aware of this. And, you know, that we've got a district very close by that lost a whole bunch of educators.
One of the things they look at is the restraint policy. I will say I'm extraordinarily proud of that. Every single restraint goes through me. I have to implement it myself. I don't know if other districts do that, but they do. We have Liam Hurley, who's our CPI director, and trains everyone. We have Craig Harris, who runs debriefings anytime we have a restraint.
So
Those things are what you have to have.
Yeah, I agree with Amy. I think we need to blow our own horn. for this
Yeah,
one.
so I think if you could send it out and blow horns for Martha and the team, that would be really great, because this is really big in the news right now.
Yes, I will give a shout out to Liam Hurley. Keeps track of everybody's CPI certification. Every single principal knows exactly who's certified and who needs to be recertified and the time frame of it. We make sure there's at least 5 to 7 people at every single building.
I think just knowing that this is not a typical
It's not something
finding,
you have to worry about.
but that this isn't a typical finding, I think
Yeah.
is impressive.
Yeah.
Well, those are good, they're good systems to have in play, but I am psyched about it.
Congratulations, well done.
Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have the Director of Finance. That was a long superintendent's report.
That was,
Well, but we haven't been here in a month.
I know,
It's been a while.
it's true.
So the only thing I have before you is an increase, or proposed increase to our driver's education program. I don't know if the committee recalls last spring, I believe it was in April, the director of the driver's education program was actually here. He'd done a lot of research on how much we charge, and we were pretty far under most other programs. And so at that time, there was a plan it was basically a 3-year plan to increase the fees by $75 each year. So you increased them last year by $75. So this is just requesting that you continue with the plan that had been laid out last spring and increase the fee by $75 again this year, which then would be $725 per participant. And then next year would be the last year in the kind of plan. Again, next year would go up by 75 and up to 800, which was kind of the goal that we wanted to get to.
So do we need an official vote on this?
Yes.
I
Okay,
think that we don't have a vote requested on here.
we don't.
We don't, so is it screw things up to wait 2 weeks to take the vote?
That's fine.
I think we just should.
So we'll re-add it under votes.
Yeah.
Great.
Speaking of updating fees, could we get the athletic director to make a recommendation about athletic fees?
I will request that.
She and I have been talking about it offline, but I just,
Okay.
And while, if the committee will indulge me, while we're on the topic of fees, this isn't the only fee, besides athletics as well, too, that we're looking at. We're also looking at our club fees. Those are incredibly low. I don't know when the last time they've been changed.
And do we even collect them?
Well, there was a pause during COVID, right? That there was no collection of the club fees. We've reinstituted collection of them this year. And so, I had a nice chance to sit down with Mr. Kohat, and we really talked about the process. And it's going to take us a little while to get everyone kind of back into that rhythm. But I do think we have a good plan to be collecting those fees and making sure that also too that, if the clubs that are being run have, participation that makes sense as well too. So long story short, we will be looking at that. And then, as the new elementary school is opening, we have this great brand new building. And so I think it's a good time holistically to look at our building use fees. Because again, I don't think those have been looked at in quite some time. you know, there's a lot of technical requirements when people are coming in. And we don't really spell out how we're gonna pass that cost on to individuals. So, at a later date, I'll be coming before you as well with some recommendations on changing that fee structure.
Thank you.
And could we, for our next meeting, could we put the memo that you sent to us all today
To talk about
The email?
budget?
about the inflation the additional monies that we're going to get
Sure.
from the MSBA?
Yeah, and budget, I'd really like to talk about budget next time we meet.
Wait, our budget
Yeah.
and town
Yes.
budget?
Budget
Yes.
in general, the money that,
How?
just a discussion, because I have no idea.
Yeah, 'cause we haven't talked about it in a
It's been
month.
a month, and I really need some information.
Okay, school committee chair?
We are having a tri-chair meeting tomorrow, so there will definitely be an update about the budget, for sure, because we hope to talk about the budget and what we still need and how we're funding things. Yeah.
So are you guys talking about the monies that are coming in from the MSBA?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We're really just talking about the budget right now, and
Okay.
there's still some money we need, and I know that the town administrator, I mean, I want to thank him for supporting the stuff that was at town meeting and being open to and saying he's gonna support finding a way to fund the additional monies that we need, so that's hopefully what we're talking about, and I think it'll be a productive conversation in the morning. So, other than that, the only other thing I need to ask is that, after town meeting, there was, a vote to form a town election review committee, and they need a school committee member on that, and if someone is interested in that. And I also, our reps, I mean, they're looking for 16 to 17-year-olds to be on it too. And I think that, maybe one of our students would be on it too.
If they're interested, I would nominate them.
Yeah, they have.
Didn't it have the select board picking those?
No,
17-year-olds?
yeah, so if you go on the town website, there's like a thing, if you're interested in it, you click on this link and then you sort of say why and what,
Gotcha.
Yeah, they
who you
sent
are.
out
Who you are.
a notice, I think, yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, like town meeting members got a notice, saying if
Fill this
anyone's
out.
interested in this committee, but I got another notice from the clerk saying we have to have someone from this committee to do it, so, sleep on it, we'll take a vote next meeting.
Anybody want it?
Anyone, people are.
Anybody want it, Glenn?
I would consider, I'm pretty interested in some of the things that we're talking about,
I'll
actually.
nominate you happily.
Yeah, let me.
All right, well,
Let me
we'll,
give that some thoughts, I want to chat
Marinate.
about it, just,
More marinate.
Yeah.
see what it's actually,
yeah, I
what
don't,
it-
you
what
know
it
what, I
entails.
think you should, look on the website, because
Yeah.
maybe, there's a contact person to sort of talk
Yeah.
about it with.
Yeah, I
Because
just
I
wanted
don't
to do that.
know what it entails, I don't know how many meetings it is, I mean, it's not gonna be I don't think it's supposed to be a long, I
Right.
think there's a beginning and an end to the committee, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it was pretty clear at town meeting that they should study what they think they should study.
Right, so I
Would
will
you
do
agree?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get just a little bit more information before I
There was a lot
crowd
of,
the aisle, huh?
there was a lot of chatter, a lot of motions and amendments and.
Amendments
At
to
one-
amendments?
There were so many amendments happening at one point that nobody really understood what we were voting on. And until somebody stood up and just said, it's just a committee, could we let the committee figure out what the committee is gonna study? It was a lot
That was
of
kinda
time
funny.
spent.
So I don't have anything else to report out, so is there any subcommittee reports?
Nope.
No? Nothing
We
else?
did start, we had ground rules meetings yesterday or 2 days ago with both AFSCME unions. I will give a shout out to Max Casper, who probably more so than any other meeting that I've been in. We spent more time on the rules, the ground rules, than I've been a part of before, and I gotta hand it to Max for being so diligent and bringing up things that I don't, in my 10 years of doing this, I've never thought about. So kudos to him.
Oh my God, that's
And
awesome.
we've decided that we're going to have, since he's not part of the administrative assistance negotiations, that we're going to hold the one that he is in first, so that we can, whatever he's bringing up in that meeting, we'll bring up in the next meeting.
So great.
Because
God,
he
he's
can't
awesome.
he can't serve on all of the negotiation committees. So kudos, Pam, for having a really good one there.
And we don't have any policy stuff.
No, not tonight.
We got to get those done. And school building, you guys just heard, it's going great. I actually saw pictures of outlet covers in the walls, so little things are getting done, and big things. And I don't see anyone for public comment. I don't feel like anyone here. So that would be a no on public comment, unless our 2 remaining audience members have anything to say. So we're on votes that need to be taken, and we already took the top 3, so now we just have donations left. We have one from a family to support the robotics team. It was a personal donation. I'll just pull it up so you can see it. It was from Peter Pashkoff and Eva Weisberg, and for $300 to help fund the robotics team for their competition. And the second one was from Gregory Hart and Jessica Weinstein Hart. They generously donated $500 that's going towards the middle school 8th grade Washington field trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally we have William Hobbs, former student, who's donating $10 to Toys for Local Children.
Nice.
So we love every big and little donation is so great. So with that, we can make a motion to accept the first donation for the $300 to support the robotics team.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? The next one is for the $500 for the 8th grade Washington funds for the DC trip.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor? And then the final one is the donation from William Hobbs for the Toys for Local Children.
I will happily make a motion to
You
approve.
know?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Do we know how old he is? Is
Huh?
he a student still?
No, he's a former student. I think he's probably in his 30s, and he's Rosalie Hobbs' son.
Oh.
She was a teacher here.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, he's
Nice.
He's he was a joy to talk to when I was at the farmers market all those weekends with the school stuff. He would come up and he would tell me all sorts of things about the school when he was in it. He had some
Oh,
campaign
that's nice.
slogan ideas. He was really a sweet man.
That's nice.
The only thing on our consent agenda is just the regular session minutes from February 8th. So if someone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, and finally, someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You guys are quite the team down there. All those in favor?
Working on expediting.
All right, you guys. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.